Okay, so we're all set. Everybody can hear me? Welcome,
Yes.
everyone, to our board meeting. This meeting is being held remotely as a meeting with a quorum of the public body physically present is not practical or prudent due to the state's declaration of a disaster due to the impacts of COVID-19. Everybody can hear me? Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
States of America,
and
and to the republic for
for
which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so again, welcome everyone. First, we're going to have is public participate or roll call. Megan, can you call the roll, please?
Trustee Lautner,
Here.
Trustee Zora,
Here.
Trustee Seidel. Here. Trustee Council,
Here.
Trustee Sheehan,
Here.
Trustee Stewart,
Here.
President DeCipio.
Here.
A quorum is present, Mr. President.
Thank you, Megan. So first on the agenda is public participation of agenda-related items only. Would anyone on the call care to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Megan?
Thank you, Mr. President. The items on this evening's consent agenda are as follows. A, approval of minutes. 1, village board meeting, November 23rd, 2021. 2, village board meeting, December 14th, 2021. 3, village board work session, January 11th, 2022. B, action, accounts payable and payroll summary. Motion 1, to authorize the president and chairperson of the finance committee to sign the register for bills and authorize the treasurer and village clerk to sign checks in payment of operating bills and salaries as itemized in the check registers. And motion 2, to authorize the village treasurer and village clerk to sign checks in the payment of payroll and other bills that become due between this date and the next village board meeting, with subsequent approval of the payroll register and voucher register by the Board of Trustees at its next meeting.
A motion to approve a consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Megan,
Second.
call the roll.
Trustee Lautner,
Yes.
Trustee Zora,
Yes.
Trustee Seidel,
Yes.
Trustee Council,
Yes.
Trustee Sheehan.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. President.
Thank you, Megan. And so we're going to go back. I inadvertently missed one of the greatest things of our agenda tonight, and that's the recognition of the achievements of the Nazareth Academy 2023 girls volleyball team. You know, we had the privilege a couple of years ago to recognize a football team who won two state championships, and the recognition that LaGrange Park receives along that avenue is tremendous, and we're so proud of what Nazareth Academy has done for our village and how they represent LaGrange Park. And so we're going to have a proclamation tonight thanking the young ladies of the volleyball team for their accomplishments. Whereas Nazareth Academy is a four-year college preparatory high school located in the village of LaGrange Park, whose values encompass the 4 pillars of scholarship, service, spirit, and unity. Whereas on Saturday, November 13th, 2021, the Nazareth Academy girls volleyball team finished a history-making season with a 3-set victory over Belvedere North High School to win the IHSA Class 3 state championship. Whereas this is the first state championship for the program or for any girls sport in Nazareth's history. Whereas this exceptional team received many accolades throughout their outstanding season, including the IHSA 3A Regional Championship, Sectional Championship, and Super Sectional Championship. Whereas it is fitting that we recognize not only the players, Gillian Grimes, Abby Reed, Layla Malarski, Catherine Sant, Olivia Austin, Megan McNicholas, Catherine Herda, Ella Jugovics, Victoria Sarin, Emily Risley, Lauren Salatala, but also the manager, Mary Grace Gerger, coaches Melissa Masterson and Kyle Masterson, the officials, parents, and countless others who work together to provide valuable training and life lessons for those outstanding athletes. Whereas we are pleased to publicly commend the Roadrunners for their hard work, sportsmanship, and inspired team play. And whereas all members of the Nazareth Academy community should be proud of their hard work and impressive accomplishments this historic season. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, James DeCipio, President of the Village of LaGrange Park, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the residents of the Village of LaGrange Park, do hereby issue this proclamation recognizing the achievements of the 2021 Nazareth girls volleyball team and extend our sincere congratulations and best wishes to the Roadrunners for continued success. So congratulations, you guys. And would someone like to speak on behalf of the Nazareth team? Teresa, anyone?
Sure. Thank you so much. It's just really such an honor to be recognized by the village. We are so proud to be part of the LaGrange Park community and so proud of our history-making girls volleyball team on this occasion of their first IHSA state championship. So thank you so much. Debbie, do you want to chime in at all?
Thanks, Therese. We too, President DeCipio and Board of Village Park, Board of LaGrange Park Village Board, we're just so grateful to you for again recognizing our school. We're so proud to be part of LaGrange Park, and it's always our desire to represent our village in a very positive way, and so proud of this team. I think many of the girls are together on one phone here, and we've got Coach Masterson with us. On behalf of Dennis Moran, our athletic director, and again, Therese and myself, and the whole team and the coaching staff, thank you, Village of LaGrange Park and President DeCipio. We're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy, and thank you, Ms. Hawkins. And on behalf of the board, again, we're so grateful for all your accomplishments in representing our community, not only Nazareth Academy, but LaGrange Park. And we will certainly recognize the volleyball team as state champs, as we did the football team when they won with a sign on Ogden Avenue. So Julia and Rick, your work is cut out for you, so we can get that put up and recognize, so everyone driving by on LaGrange Road can see that we have state champions in our village.
Love
So
that. That's
so much
awesome.
for all that you do, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much
very
for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Any
Thank
of the
you.
trustees want to say anything? Trustee Lautner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure I can add much more than that, other than how proud we all are of the accomplishment of this fine group of young women. So thanks for making us all shine, and thanks for all your efforts.
Thank you, Trustee Lautner. Trustee Council? Trustee Seidel?
Just congratulations, and we are so proud.
Thank you, Trustee Seidel. Trustee Zora?
Yeah, congratulations and great job kicking butt.
Trustee Sheehan?
Roadrunners, proud of everybody. You guys did a great job. Way to represent LaGrange Park.
Thank you, Trustee Sheehan. Trustee Stewart?
Just keep up the good work, ladies. Congratulations, and go Roadrunners.
Yeah, and again, Debbie and Therese, thank you so much for all that you do for the student athletes at Nazareth Academy and how they all represent our community in such a great manner. So thank you.
Thank
And
you,
we'll get
David.
that sign up.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good
Great.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have village manager's report. Julia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have just one item to report. I wanted to make everybody aware that our event controller, which helps to broadcast our village board meetings on Channel 6, on Comcast, and Channel 99 on Uverse, failed just a little while ago. And because of this, we are only able to broadcast this particular meeting on YouTube this evening. So certainly all the information went out to the public about the meeting to attend. It is currently being broadcast on YouTube, but we were unable because of the equipment failure to broadcast on those 2 channels. And that concludes my report unless if there's any questions.
Great. Thank you, Julia. Moving on, Administration Committee, Trustee Council.
Thank you, Mr. President. I lost my microphone and I just wanted to commend the girls volleyball team and especially the administration. I know they probably signed off on the call, but I just want to say that we're really honored and we're very privileged to have such a fine institution in our village. I'm a little biased as my son went there, but nonetheless, they're a great asset to our village. So without further ado, I will read my report. Thank you. Administration report for the month of February. The village offices will be closed on Monday, February 21 in observance of President's Day. Regular office hours will resume on Tuesday, February 22nd at 9 a.m. HELP Help Program. The village is once again offering its Help Everyone in LaGrange Park program this winter to connect older adult residents and persons with disabilities with volunteers who are offering snow shoveling services. LaGrange Park residents who request assistance will be provided a list of available volunteers and are responsible for contacting volunteers and scheduling their services. Contact Sandy Bagelich at 708-354-0225 to sign up for the program. Volunteer applications and resident request forms are also available on the village's website.
Hi.
Village news. Excuse me. Residents are encouraged to sign up for the village's weekly electronic newsletter, e-briefs, to stay up to date on important local news. E-briefs includes regular updates to keep residents informed of construction projects, community and economic development, news, and much, much more. To subscribe, visit the village's website, navigate to the How Do I page, and select Sign Up for E-briefs newsletter. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Council. Moving on, Building and Zoning Committee, Trustee Zora.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to report the building department activities for December of 2021. 62 permits were issued in December compared to 68 last December. There were a total of 1,032 permits issued for 2021 compared to 1,015 in 2020. Permits issued for additions were almost doubled compared to 2020 and tripled compared to 2019. Permits issued for pools were tripled compared to the number issued in 2020. Estimated construction costs for December were just over $2.5 million, nearly double compared to last December. Permit fees collected for the month were just over $53,000, up 94% compared to last December. 146 inspections were conducted in December compared to 150 last December. 7 were not approved. There were a total of 1,010 inspections conducted in 2021 compared to 1,528 in 2020. 7 code enforcement property maintenance matters were addressed in December. There were a total of 242 matters addressed in 2021. A hole dug for a new foundation on Brainerd collapsed during a heavy rain, slightly undermining the neighbor's driveway. Staff went out to the site and began working with the contractor to address the matter. Staff participated in the PZC meeting regarding Andy's subdivision, site plan review, and variation requests. Patrick worked closely with Maggie over several months along with other staff. Work continued at 1201 Barnsdale, including the pouring of concrete for sidewalks, landscape islands, work on stormwater detention, and paving. An initial demo permit was issued for a new animal hospital being installed at 905 East 31st Street. A wall rough inspection was approved for Murphy's transmission. The new space is partially finished with the break room, restrooms, and offices. The roof and windows are nearly complete. Unfortunately, the doors are still on back order due to COVID-related delays. Final inspections were completed for a new mechanical system at the Village Market. The rear tenant spaces, along with a few others within the north building, received a new furnace, air conditioning units,
so that the individual HVAC units now serve those tenants. And that is all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Zora, and thank you. Future reports with the trustees, if you just read the December report as Trustee Zora just did, that would be great for brevity. Moving on to engineering capital projects, Trustee Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 items to discuss this evening. First being a virtual pre-construction meeting was held for the permeable pavement intersection project on November 9th with the contractor Copenhagen Construction and the MWRD to review project guidelines and discuss the project schedule. The MWRD approved the subcontractors listed by Copenhagen. Copenhagen indicated that the current timeline for delivery of the paving bricks is 8 to 10 weeks. It was decided to start the project the first week of April. The project involves creating permeable pavement at the intersections of Monroe Avenue with Community Drive, Robin Hood Lane, and Sherwood Road. Second item, on November 1st, a pre-construction meeting was held for the MFT pavement patching project. The contractor, Chicagoland Paving, outlined the plans to complete the project during the last week of November. The project includes installing pavement patches throughout the village. Third and final item, specifications and bid documents have been prepared for the 2021-2022 sewer lining project. The bid opening date of December 2nd was set. The project involves lining sections of sewer that are in poor condition before they are in need of complete replacement. About 1,700 feet of 12-inch diameter sewer is being considered. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Stewart. Moving on, engineering capital, Public Safety Committee, Trustee Seidel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a lot to report this evening. First, the police department summary throughout December 2021. Total number of crimes reported in 2021 are 14.5% lower than those reported in 2020, with 414 reported in 2021 compared to 479 in 2020. This decrease in reported crime has a direct correlation with a significant reduction in COVID-19 related fraudulent unemployment claims that are categorized under identity theft between 2020 and 2021. Overall police activity in 2021 was 19.5% higher in 2021 with 9,176 incidents compared to 7,545 incidents in 2020. Of the 9,176 incidents in 2021, 1,008 were assists to the fire department, 2,869 were self-initiated building, business, or park checks, and 721 were traffic enforcement stops. Traffic enforcement citations ended the year 10.8% higher in 2021 than in 2020, with 3,240 citations issued. These include parking, compliance, local ordinance, and state-issued citations. Training continues to be a focus of the police department, with staff partaking in over 4,300 hours of online and in-person training. These hours include police academy training for 2 new officers and field training for 3 officers, approximately 2,500 hours. Number of contacts that the police department has had with juvenile offenders in 2021 remains stagnant. Grange Park Police Department will continue to utilize a multitude of programs throughout the year to assist with juvenile matters. Some of these programs consist of the Adopt a Cop program, Youth Outreach Services, Child Advocacy Center, and Presence Health Care Social Services Division, to name a few. Grange Park Police Department has had LaGrange Park Police Department continues to contract a part-time police social worker through Presence Health to assist us with following up with incidents that involve domestic issues, elder care, juvenile runaways, and mental health issues. Police Department is looking forward to hosting many special events and community-based programs in 2022. Some of those events include National Night Out, Shop with a Cop, Citizens Police Academy, and Coffee with the Chief of Staff. 2021 continued to be a year of technological advances to help streamline services. Police Department purchased new mobile data terminals for the patrol fleet, along with a Flock LPR, which is located at 31st and LaGrange Road. Technological advances continue to be a top priority for the Police Department in 2022. Please follow the Police Department on our Facebook page at LaGrange Park Police Department, our Twitter account, LaGrange Park PD, and Instagram at LaGrange Park PD. Friendly reminder about securing one's personal property at all times. Please lock your vehicles and residence, especially during overnight hours. Keep valuables properly secured and out of sight at all times. In addition, please be aware of any scheduled package deliveries. If feasible, please request an in-person delivery, which requires a signature upon dropping off said package. That concludes the police department report. Next, fire department activities for December 2021. EMS incidents are 135. There's been 1725 in 2021 compared to 1536 in 2020. Fire rescue incidents this month, 40. There's been 533 in 2021 compared to 498 in 2020. During the month, interviews were conducted of new paid-on-call firefighter applicants. Out of the group, 6 were sent for background investigations and medical exams and hired by year-end. PSI paramedic Chelsea Dennis graduated the Fire Academy. Fire department personnel attended the holiday tree lighting, escorting both Santa and Sparky. Retirement celebration was held at Fire Station 1 for Joe Pelica, who served in our department for over 22 years, ending a 38 years of time spent in the fire service. Fire chief participated in the State of Village address. He also met with School District 95 representatives during the month to discuss portions of their crisis response plan. All new battery-powered rescue and ventilation saws were placed in service on all fire apparatus. A purchase made possible using foreign fighter insurance tax funds. Engine 1211 is 20 years old, was sent out for repairs to a damaged main seal on the pump. Santa Parade and food drive was conducted on December 18th. Thanks to the generous donations by residents, several loads of food were delivered to the St. Barbara Food Pantry, the St. Francis Food Pantry, and Beds Plus. Thanks to all the village staff and village officials for their help and participation. Next, the paramedic firefighter contract addendum. General background. As you are aware, the village currently contracts 4 6 full-time shift paramedic firefighter personnel from Paramedic Services of Illinois, commonly known as PSI. 2 contract personnel are assigned each 24-hour shift, followed by 48 hours off. We have contracted with PSI since 2018 when PSI entered into a merger acquisition with our provider at the time, PSSI. At this time, PSSI has been our contractor for paramedic firefighter services since January of 2002. We are currently in the second year of a 3-year contract with PSI. Current contract began on May 1st, 2020 and runs through April 30th, 2023. Overall, we've enjoyed the contractual relationship with PSI and PSSI prior to that. Unfortunately, we have recently been experiencing staffing shortage on our contract. This has placed a heavy burden on our staff, with our assigned personnel having to work an extreme amount of overtime. We've also had to rotate personnel in from other contracts and regularly use PSI part-time floating personnel to achieve proper coverage. At times, the stress placed on our personnel from staffing issues on top of the pandemic has been extreme. Also, unfortunately, the situation is not unique to LaGrange Park or to PSI. There's currently a crisis in EMM staffing regionally and at a state level and nationally. Locally, most contract EMS providers in our area are experiencing shortages, and even some municipalities are having a tough time with hiring and retention in the fire EMS field. This paramedic staffing crisis is being caused by a number of factors, from pay scale, schooling required, pandemic, and altogether an overall lack of interest in taking such jobs. In Illinois, the situation is further impacted by the process and time required to get licensed. As such, there's just not enough EMS personnel licensed as EMTs or paramedics to fulfill the EMS positions needed. So much so that IBPH has had to form a task force late last year in order to try to address the issue. Currently, PSI is trying to recruit personnel and stay competitive with other contracts by sign-up bonuses for paramedics and include any additional bonus if someone is already a certified firefighter. They're also offering current employees a referral bonus. In addition, back in August, they raised base salaries for starting employees by $10,000 without any increase to the cost of our current contract. Internally, staff has been discussing how to address the issue, specifically for LaGrange Park, even when staffing appeared abundant, in utilizing contract paramedic firefighters. We regularly lost out to municipalities and fire districts as they regularly offered higher salaries along with a pension to go with it. That is something that clearly creates turnover, which we have lived with. Over time, we then become competing for employees who must decide which contract provider is best and maybe pays the most. Now with the crisis critical, we also need to be competitive with PSI itself to make sure that we offer on our particular contract will help to attract employees in order to create more consistent staffing and preferably the best and brightest employees out of who is available. During our discussions, which also that involve PSI, we identified a few things that our contract can offer, which may not necessarily set us apart from others, but which will help with recruitment. We also discussed ways to promote our contract benefits and the needs to increase advertising and reach out to both PSI on our own. Bottom line identified through and what has risen to the surface in our discussions is the need to increase individual contract salaries further. That is what PSI is doing with our contracts, and that is what other contractors are doing with many of their contracts. Unfortunately, in doing so, the village would need to take on the financial burden. During talks, PSI provided us a compensation analysis indicating where base salaries are for other contracts and where they are moving. In relation to such, we researched and discussed various options related to potential options for increases at Grange Park and requested proposals from PSI for a contract addendum raising base salaries to various levels. Those numbers are as follows. Current contract with a $50,000 base salary increase from $40,000 in August 21. Without contract minimum, 5/1/2020 to 4/30/2021 is 5/27/724. 5/1/2021 to 4/30/2022 is 5/38/284. 5/1/2022 to 4/30/2023 is 5/49/048. The addendum proposals upon current contract year, which are 5/1/2021 to 4/30/2022, with a base salary of $50,000 is 538,284 annually and 44,857 a month. Base salary of $55,000 is 607,128 and 50,594 a month at a 5737 monthly increase. Base salary of $60,000 is 647,988 with 53,999 a month with a 9,142 monthly increase. Base salary of $65,000 is 685,080 annually, 5790 a month, and a 12,233 monthly increase. The recommendation, this item was discussed at the village board work session this past January 11th. Based upon the various circumstances currently related to paramedic staffing on our contract and the overall state of EMS staffing regionally, village board was generally in agreement that some action should be taken in regards to recruitment and retention related to salaries. Since that discussion, I've been made aware of additional 3 Chicago suburbs that took action to increase the base pay on their contractual paramedics. Although various option levels have been presented and discussed, staff would recommend entering into a contract addendum with Paramedic Services of Illinois, which PSI agrees to provide the annual starting salary at $65,000 for new employees assigned to our village contract. This addendum would also include for PSI to agree to raise annual wages of PSI current employees signed to the village's contract by $15,000 or an amount agreed upon with the village. A rough draft copy of the contract is attached. Final version will be viewed and approved by the village attorney prior to execution. There's also been discussions on how to fund these increases based upon information that we obtained. We believe all or at least part of such increase can be funded by transitioning to new ambulance rate structure, which will be brought to the board on a separate item for discussion and action this evening. For action requested is paramedic firefighter contract addendum. Make a motion to authorize and direct the village manager to execute a contract addendum with Paramedic Services of Illinois, Inc., in which PSI agrees to increase the starting salaries and annual wages of PSI employees assigned to the villages as proposed.
Second.
The motion and a second, discussion, trustee Seidel.
We talked about it before. I mean, we have to do this for, the safety factors as well as our personnel in the department. So it looks like it will be funded by the next issue that will be up for discussion. So I am in full support.
Thank you, trustee Seidel. Trustee Zora.
As trustee Seidel said, we did already discuss this in the work session. I mean, honestly, I don't think the village has a choice in this. They're a critical provider in our village and the paramedics should be paid accordingly. So I am also in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Zora. Trustee Stewart?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we talked about this before, and I think that, the paramedic staff is a very unappreciated staff in general, and I think that we have to go with what supply and demand is telling us, and it's important that we keep retention of these employees, so I support.
Thank you, trustee Stewart. Trustee Sheehan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I echo the thoughts of my fellow trustees. Something we have to do when it comes to our residents. We have to provide the best for just in case it's needed. So we'll talk about how it's going to get funded. I appreciate staff doing the work of getting the numbers and how it's going to be paid. So kudos to them for providing us that for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Sheehan. Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, certainly, we did talk about this extensively in the last meeting, and we really have no choice but to, I mean, it's a huge increase, there's no question, but we'll get into more conversations in the next topic regarding how to fund it, but I think we do need to make this move to remain competitive to attract and retain the resources that we need for our village in this area. So I would support it, of course.
Thank you, trustee Lautner. Trustee Council?
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree wholeheartedly that we need to increase their salaries. The question remains, how are we going to fund it? And I echo the sentiments of my fellow trustees. I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Council. And as one of the trustees said, I would like to thank staff and chief for all that they did to get through this. It's very important and critical to our village. So Megan, will you call the roll?
Trustee Lautner,
Yes.
trustee Zora,
Yes.
trustee Seidel. Yes. Trustee Council,
Yes.
trustee Sheehan.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. President.
Thank you, Megan. Continue, please, trustee Seidel.
Thank you, President DeCipio. For the next item, the ambulance service fees. The village provides EMS response, care, and transport to residents and others throughout the community. We implemented a service fee for such in 2000 after a referendum designed to increase property tax to help pay for the service failed to pass. The last fee increase occurred in 2012 as approved by the village board by ordinance and remains in place today. Additional information about revenue and expenses related to EMS can be found in the attached documentation, but a summary is as follows. These are estimates as cost and revenue can vary substantially based upon the number of calls for service over the course of any given year. In fiscal year 2021, we received $408,355 from service fees, and the current ambulance tax levy is $119,000. As such, total annual revenue directly related to EMS is approximately $527,355. This number moving forward into the current fiscal year has changed somewhat based upon where our billing cost recovery ends up, which will also include our participation in the GEMT program. In comparison, annual operation expenses related directly to EMS are approximately $734,690. This includes $538,285 for the fiscal year paramedic firefighter contract and $196,405 for part-time EMT wages, program administration, EMS supplies, medical equipment maintenance, etc. This does not include capital costs such as replacement ambulance, cardiac monitors, etc. In very general terms, one could say that at a minimum, we have approximately $206,595 shortfall in revenue to support our program, which is currently made by the general fund. In addition, one could say the difference can possibly be made up in an increase of fees. Unfortunately, in addition to concerns about the impact of such a large fee increase to those paying it, the solution is not as simple. Majority of our patients use Medicare as their primary insurance, and regardless of what our fee structure is, Medicare will only pay a specific assigned amount. Same applies to Medicaid at even a lower rate. If the patient does not have supplemental insurance, law prohibits us from collecting the balance or full amount from those covered by Medicare or Medicaid. Following discussion at the work session on January 11th, Staff obtained additional information regarding the number of transports that were billed for, with a breakdown of the type of coverage that applied to the patient. Detailed is illustrated in the attachment, but Medicare and Medicaid patients made up for just about 75% of our ambulance transports for FY 2021. Current rate structure: resident basic life support is $500, resident advanced life support is $800, non-resident basic life support is $800, non-resident advanced life support is $1,200. Mileage is $15 mileage, and ALS intervention is $300. In researching a proposed fee increase, we evaluated what other communities are currently charging and met with our EMS billing service, Andrews Medical Billing, on various occasions. During such, it was discovered that many other agencies are moving to a more streamlined and simpler fee structure, and in doing so, many have substantially increased their fees. Various agencies have implemented a flat fee regardless of level of service and regardless whether or not the patient in it is a resident. Additional information on such rates and fees can be found in the attached documentation. Additional comparisons have been added since the discussion at the work session. Many such agencies have justified their rate increase as of late, reflecting on information obtained in completing their annual cost report, which is required to be completed for providers participating in the GEMT program. The Illinois GEMT program was established in 2019 as a federal funding opportunity to allow Illinois agencies that provide emergency medical transportation service for Medicaid patients to receive supplemental reimbursement for unrecovered costs associated with serving these patients. GEMT program provides federal funding to bridge a portion of the difference between Medicaid reimbursement rates and actual costs of service delivery to Medicaid patients. Report required for participation requires agencies to provide a great amount of documentation related to expenses and medical transport call volume, and then determine the average cost per transport. Most recent average cost per transport calculated for the LaGrange Park Fire Department is $1,443. Once that cost is provided, the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services uses a funding formula to assign our actual GEMT rate, or the dollar amount that is used for the year in determining gap funding for transporting Medicaid patients. This year, our GEMT rate for basic life support transport is $1,169.45, and for advanced life support funding is $1,715.54. Again, in working with Andrews Medical Billing, they were able to provide a rate analysis using transport data and provide the estimated cost recovery increases we would see depending on various proposed new rates we would charge. In evaluating the changes made in other communities, the following was identified using 2019 call data. Flat new rate of $1,200 for all patient transports, $63,360 additional recovery. Flat new rate of $1,400 for all patient transports with $85,359.94 additionally recover, and a flat new rate of $1,600 for patient transports would be at $111,759.94 for additional recovery. Following the work session, we asked Andrews to conduct additional rate analysis using some updated data and to do so for the fiscal year. The results as followed. Flat new rate of $1,200 for patient transports would be $51,679.90 for additional recovery. Flat new rate of $1,400 for patient transports would be $76,839.90 for additional recovery. And a new rate of $1,600 for patient transports would be $101,990.90 for additional recovery. For FY 2021, a flat rate of $1,200 for patient transports would be $40,239.92 additional recovery. Flat new rate of $1,400 for patient transports would be $59,679.92, and a flat new rate of $1,600 for all patient transports would be $79,119.92 additional recovery. As you will note, the anticipated recovery revenue is not as robust as previous numbers provided for CY19. In evaluating such, Andrews noticed that our number of transports went down, and in particular, ALS transports went down and BLS transports went up. We can bill more and recover more for ALS transports. Also, there was a 6% increase in Medicaid patients. Those patients will receive the least initial recovery revenue from. Level of care, ALS is 72.83% in FY20 and 63.28% in FY21. ALS 2 is 1.17% in FY20 and 1.28 in FY21. BLS is 21.99% in FY20 and 28.48 in FY21, and no transport is 4.01% in fiscal year 20 and 6.9% in fiscal year 21. Should further be noted through that a few considerations should be given evaluating this more recent data. In regards to transport, COVID has been an impact. There was a brief surge when COVID began, but it quickly changed course when the public was urged to stay home unless very sick. For FY20, there was 1,023 transports. In fiscal year 21, there was 934 transports. Although COVID is still very prevalent, things appear to be shifting slightly back. In FY21, there was an average of 78 transports a month. So far in the current fiscal year, we're averaging 88 transports per month. In regards to the increased numbers of patients utilizing Medicaid, the recovery revenue numbers from Anders do not include GEMT reimbursement. At this time, based upon money we received thus far, it appears we receive at least $50,000 annually from the federal GEMT program. We receive more, but it's split with the state of Illinois, who manages the program. Recommendation is noted above. An increase in fees can only generate a limited amount of revenue from most of patients we transport, and we are tied to accepting Medicare and Medicaid for reimbursement and any supplemental insurance one may have. Regardless, based upon how much time has passed since our last increase and cost increase for service over the years, staff believes we should do something at this time for additional cost recovery. Although the return is limited, staff recommends a proposed increase in fees. Staff would also recommend using a new flat fee as illustrated above with no delineation between residents and non-residents. Sorry. Although this will appear inconsistent with the best intentions for residents, there are a few factors to consider. For most residents, we again will be accepting the Medicare, Medicaid, assignment rate, and any other supplemental insurance. We cannot collect beyond that. In addition, for patients relying on insurance and private pay, Andres will balance the bill. Our research indicates that we have the legal ability to choose not to balance bill residents. As for recommended a rate, staff is recommending the new flat rate of $1,600. Although some neighboring communities are charging a much higher rate, we believe we are somewhat bound to staying close to our average cost per transport that we would use the GAMT cost report. Many other nearby communities, cost per transport is much higher, but most of this was reflected in the increased cost with maintaining a full-time career of firefighter paramedics with related increased salaries along with pension costs. Also, although the $1,600 is higher than our current $1,443 average cost per transport, staff anticipates that average to go up based potential wage and other cost increase, and especially related to cost increase related to any potential contract amendment with PSSI. Lastly, as you know, there's a great number of variables that can affect ambulance billing, recovery revenue, economy costs, disease changes in insurance, Medicare, Medicare program, etc. If we use information in the rate analysis provided for FY20, though, as it appears we are heading back that direction for the number of transports, we can provide a very rough estimate of what increasing our rate to $1,600 flat will do for an additional revenue recovery. Again, the estimate is $101,999.90. In addition, we are seeing somewhat of an increase in reimbursement for the GEMT program in the current fiscal year from what we received in FY21. This should help further with additional recovery revenue, but it's too hard to determine at this point what the number actually will be and what the timing of seeing that will be. Discussion and action, EMS ambulance service fees. I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance amending Chapter 36, Section 36.01 of the Village of LaGrange Park Municipal Code, increasing ambulance service fees.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Trustee Seidel.
Thank you, Mr. President. We discussed this at the last meeting. I'm in full support of this. It is some way to fund the last item that we just passed and discussed. They've put a lot of time and research into this, so I am in full support.
Thank you, trustee Seidel. Trustee Zora?
I also am in full support, as we discussed at the work session. I mean, I feel like our hands are tied here. We have to do this. We need the revenue, and this service is important to the village. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Zora. Trustee Stewart?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I think we don't have a choice in this matter, and the 1,600 flat cost will definitely help out, and hopefully we'll get some sort of contract amendment with PSI to sort of help out with this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Stewart. Trustee Sheehan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, like everybody said, we've discussed this. It's something we have to do. So for that reason, I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Sheehan. Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me take a minute and just heartily express appreciation for all the effort and the additional information, response to trustee inquiries about multiple ways or other ways to potentially minimize the impact on our residents. And I think the job that they've done is no less than outstanding in clarifying the impact that we're having from the salary increases, the costs, where the revenue from coming. And obviously at the last meeting, we talked about, was there potential for going to referendum and opportunities, all under the idea of how can we minimize the impact on our residents. And I think that their efforts and the work that they've done to clarify where the revenue comes from, where are the costs really identified, and what are the options at this point for minimizing that impact, and not the least of which is the option that we have for not balanced billing our residents. I think that's a key aspect that is driving this recommendation. And my other trustees, obviously, we don't have a choice. Yeah, we do have a choice, and I understand what you're saying, but we do have a choice. But I think with the information that's been provided to us, I think that this is the most intelligent approach to deciding how do we, provide the service, continue to provide this key service for our residents, minimize the impact to those residents, and move forward with hopefully remaining competitive in this industry, which I know there's a lot of factors that are driving this competition. So I certainly support this. I would even support if we ended up billing non-residents somewhat higher. But I'm okay with the recommendation of charging the same for both. But again, assuming that we're going to collect what we can from Medicare, Medicaid, insurances, GMT, and beyond that, not balance billing our residents. So I just wanted to take just a couple extra minutes and express appreciation for all the work that went into this. It's very, very well done. And it's not lost on, I'm sure, the entire board, the appreciation of that effort to come to this decision. So yes, I would support it.
Thank you, trustee Lautner. Trustee Council?
Thank you, Mr. I realize that there is a dire need to keep our paramedics and our EMTs. And we've provided this service for our residents, I don't know, for decades, I'm sure decades. I know that we have to support this. My questions have been answered, and I would truly like to thank staff for all of the time that they've taken, and to just, glom on to trustee Lautner's words. I believe that we have a great staff, and had it not been for their outstanding efforts in getting some answers to us, I would find it hard to say yes to a proposal like this. But because of the extra work that they put into this and giving us some decent answers, I'm saying yes, and I'm fully supporting this, with the understanding that we would bill our residents differently than our non-residents if that were possible. I would agree with trustee Lautner's sentiments on that. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Council. Yes, I don't want to reiterate what everybody has said, but certainly staff is key in this. And we're so grateful for everything that staff does, all the hard work you guys put in to make us look good. So thank you. So Megan, call the roll.
Trustee Lautner,
Yes.
trustee Zora,
Yes.
trustee Seidel.
Yes.
Trustee Council,
Yes.
trustee Sheehan,
Yes.
trustee Stewart.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. President.
Thank you, Megan. And let's see, and thank you, trustee Seidel.
Thank you,
Well,
Mr. President. That concludes public safety.
Great, thank you. And moving on, Public Works Committee, trustee Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. For December, crews repaired 2 6-inch water mains, 1 8-inch water main, and 1 8-inch water main this month. All these repairs were completed, keeping main pressure above 20 pounds per square inch. Therefore, no boil orders were issued. The village leaf program was completed, ending the 2021 season. An extra round of leaf pickup was advertised and conducted due to favorable temperatures and the late leaf drop last year. The street patching program was completed the first week in December. Paving consisted of Class D patches in both 2-inch and 6-inch depths, totaling 6,980 square yards of asphalt used. A special brush pickup was conducted due to extremely high winds affecting our village on multiple occasions. DPW participated in the Santa Parade again this year with both police and fire departments. This was an excellent event which brought the community and departments together for a noble cause. Thank you for everyone involved to make this event happen again, a success. December 28th marked the latest ever first measurable snowfall since record keeping began in 1909. Staff was ready and hit the streets with salt applications and also had to plow village roads multiple times. GIS work has continued collecting data on village-owned assets along with continued training throughout the village. Water meters were read in Section 3 and 15 monthly bacterial samples were taken. Various water and sewer work orders were completed along with resident tree concerns and general construction inquiries. Routine maintenance to the department fleet and equipment was performed as well to police and fire vehicles. And next, Mr. President, we have a presentation, Lead Service Line Replacement Notification Act, LSLR. The presentation provides a brief update to the board on new legislative mandate for the lead service line replacements and the notification process. On August 27, 2021, Governor Pritzker signed into law HB 3739, Public Act 1020613, which went into effect January 1st of this year. The goal of the new law is the complete removal of lead water services within a community's water supply. There are several steps in the process, including what is required now, an inventory of water service materials, a replacement plan, including engineering, funding, and construction. The village has until 2044 to comply with the rules of the law. With that, Mr. President, I would gladly turn it over to Director Ratty, please.
Thank you, trustee Sheehan. Director, you ready?
Maybe it would help if I unmute myself. Can everybody see the PowerPoint at this point in time? Thank you, Trustee Sheehan. You did a good job at starting out my presentation for me. I'm gonna switch this over, so I gotta get you guys out of the way. There we go. So I'm just gonna start out with this quick presentation. I'm sure there's gonna be lots of questions that are gonna come up in the presentation or even after the fact, because we're all still trying to learn a lot every day with this new act as well. But we're just going to go over the nuts and bolts of it right now. Again, this is the Lead Service Line Replacement and Notification Act. Again, there's the actual bill numbers when it was signed in the law. But the key date right there is January 1st of 2022. That's when this law was implemented, and we were supposed to start with some of the processes moving forward at that date. Basically, it's pretty simple. We have to identify where all the lead services are, and we have to get them out of the ground one way or another. And we have a long time frame to do it, but unfortunately, this is one of the largest unfunded mandates that have probably ever been pushed onto a municipality in history. Not only with the internal work that needs to be done, contracted work that needs to be done, the documentation, the planning, trying to secure funding. You know, this is a gigantic project that is just going to take a huge undertaking by a lot of people to make this a successful project. And again, that is our ultimate goal. You know, we've all been hearing about lead service lines and high lead content in water and what it could possibly do to the body. Again, we're very proactive in this, and this has not been something that's just come down recently. It's been talked about for many, many years. It's just a law that went through pretty quickly on the state side, even though that there was federal legislation going through as well, but that didn't make it. But the state went ahead. They created their own law that is going to be a lot stricter than what the feds were going to be as well. So again, what this means to us, again, the effective date was January 1st of 2022. Nothing really had to be done ASAP, except for if we were to run into a leaky lead service line or something like that on what we needed to do from that point in time. We'll get into that in a little bit. But again, the goal is ultimately to have zero lead water services in our community by the end of 2044, if not sooner. Again, the regulations, there's short-term regulations that we need to start implementing now. And again, this goes all the way to 2044 if needed, but we're hopefully going to get it done quicker than that. Then we're going to go over some of the key dates and milestones that we have to hit. Right now, the next steps that we're doing right now is that the village is required to replace the public portion if disturbed, meaning we hit it during a main break, contractor is doing work for us, disturbs the line, or we get a leak at a B box or something like that. If we know that it's lead, we have to get that pipe out of the ground as soon as possible. That gives us 30 days to replace the public portion and 120 days if we have inclement weather or it's in the winter months. That means we have to replace that water service from the water main to the Buffalo box on the public portion. At the same time, we need to encourage that if we find a lead service line from the Buffalo box leading into the home, we're encouraged to try to seek participation. But at this point in time, we are not obligated to replace that. Like some of the rules have stated in the last few months, it was unclear, but we're actually starting to get more clarity on it, that we are not obligated to replace those, but we have to seek encouragement to try to get those done at the same time. And it would benefit homeowners if we do, and I can go into an example a little bit later. If a property owner were to refuse, we have to then get what they call a waiver, which is going to be provided to us by either the IEPA or the Department of Public Health, that the resident would have to sign, and we would have to maintain that for a period of time. And at the same time, we would have to provide them with a filter, pitcher or a tap filter that is approved for removal of lead up to about 6 months if they decide not to participate with that process that we're doing. We've been having some pretty big discussions with the building department, Chief Magus and Patrick. They've been very, very good meetings that we've had to talk about what happens on private side work that happens, whether it's a sewer repair and somebody runs into a lead service line. How are we going to tackle those. We're still in the mix of trying to finalize those documents, but sooner or later, we're going to have all this up on the website with all these available to contractors or even our residents. So the big step that we have to do first, though, as part of the project, is to identify the materials that are actually in the ground to the best of our ability. Again, in our code, the code states that the homeowner is responsible from the Buffalo box to the home, and we are responsible from the Buffalo box to the water main. That's the public side. We have to provide an inventory, which I'll go into a little bit. You'll see our inventory with GIS, but we have to identify to the best of our ability what is actually in the ground. Well, the rule doesn't necessarily state that we have to unearth anything to find out what that material is. So there's different methods that we might be able to use with doing customer surveys, things like that, to identify what the service type is coming into the home, and some records that we do have. But unfortunately, we don't have a lot because our town has a lot of years of history. We just don't have a lot of this data that we're going to be able to have at our disposal. So again, we have to do the best job that we can to try to find these. We have to identify whether they're copper, lead, galvanized, plastic, or if we are unsure, it has to be identified as unknown. But we have to get them on, in both sides, the public and the private. Again, the private side is going to be a little easier for us to tackle because a good majority of the service lines that come up through the basement floors or through the foundation walls are going to be a good representation, but we are going to have some one-offs that may not be that way. But again, we can only do what we can do with what we can see. Again, we don't have to unearth anything to identify that, even though that there's a potential down the road to be able to do some of that. So again, right now we are starting to collect that data. The initial inventory is due a year from now, on April 15th of 2023. And we have to provide this data, even though we're already doing that currently. It's what we're providing now. We've been having to do it for about 6 or 7 years to provide the EPA. But one of the things that we have to do now is we have to post it on our website, if we have a website, which we will, or you can have the IEPA do it. But we're going to post it on our website so that way residents can actually, and we're going to use the GIS system where the residents can actually go click on their own resident, and it'll tell them what we feel their water service is based upon our current data. By 2024 of April 15th, the final inventory is due. This is the one that becomes tricky for us because if we don't know what a service line is, whether public or private, at that point in time, we cannot document anything that is called unknown. We now have to convert that all to a lead service line. Even though we don't know it, it has to be considered lead. So again, part of the planning process to make this work for us, we're going to try to do some other interior work, but some of the stuff that we have that's unidentified, unfortunately, is going to be having to turn over to lead. But that's just going to give us a little bit a more stringent timeline to get things replaced as we go further on the presentation. I'll explain that a little bit more as well. So right here is just a quick little snippet of one section of our town with our inventory. And as you can see, there's a color code and a slash mark for each resident. The one side is the street side of that bubble is going to represent the private side or the public side. And facing the home, the back side of that bubble is going to be a representation of the public or the private side. So as you can see, we have some reds in here, which in our color coding, red is we already identified as lead. Green means that what we have data-wise is going to show that it's a copper service, and those yellows are what we considered unknown. Those are the ones that after 2024, that if we don't know what they are, they're going to have to be turned into a red color, okay? I'm going to put something else up that I wasn't planning on talking about, but I think it's a good thing to show that. So the new map that you see is what we have live on our screens that is in what we call our dashboard. And actually, the MGP consortium is putting out a new one later this month, next week at some point in time. That's going to look a little bit different than this, but at the top of it, it's going to give us exact numbers of what we have. So at any point in time, I can pull up the dashboard it's going to tell me, based upon the inventory that we have, how many copper services, how many lead services, how many unknowns. And they're also going to include a way to shade the private side if we were to get one of the waivers signed, that we can easily identify the waiver homes, not just keep it classified as lead, because then there may be several of them. So this will be a way for us to be able to take a quick snapshot of those. As we start moving forward with the inventory, with the GIS platform, we could take photos. If we're inside a home, we could take live photos of what the actual, where the meter's at, things like that, to help gauge for future replacements. So it's going to be very, very helpful to be able to track those waivers. We could take a snapshot of the signed waiver, attach it to that home, things like that. So GIS is going to play a huge role in the inventory part of this. And I'm excited about that part. But again, the next time that I show this is going to look a little bit different, just because some consortium members wanted to have different colors. They didn't like the green or the yellow and the red. So there's a new finagle. But again, up on top, we would have live data up there that shows what our numbers are, which is important for us, because those are the numbers that we have to report to the EPA, and having it on our website is going to be critical. So moving forward, we call it step 1A, because at the same time as that we're doing the inventory, this is where our planning's got to come from. And the planning portion is probably the biggest undertaking, because we need to take the inventory of what we know currently to try to begin our planning stages on how we're going to go ahead and do this project. There's a lot that comes in with this, but ultimately the plan, by having the plans developed early enough, we can get those submitted to the IEPA. The IEPA's current funding mechanism is through the state revolving loan fund. They're going to provide potentially a maximum of $4 million per year per municipality. If we can get to that point, those are going to be what they call forgiveness loans. So it'll be basically free money for us, but we have to get in line. And by getting ahead of this a little bit more is going to give us the opportunity to potentially get some of that funding that they currently have. And again, there's talks about replenishing that fund through some federal dollars as well. So we're hoping that, in Illinois, just so you guys have a true fact of where we stand, Illinois is the top state in the country with the most lead service lines everywhere. Anyway, we're about 700,000 lead service lines in our state. Again, big portion of that's going to be the city of Chicago, but being number one in the country for the lead service lines, I could see why they wanted to move this up a little faster instead of waiting for a federal. But as part of the process is that we have to provide these cost estimates to be able to submit these plans for a 5-year increment. So every 5 years, you're going to hopefully get funding. In year 4, you're going to provide another set of plans that'll be for the next 5 years, and so on, until the actual project's done, or until 2044. I hope it's not 2044. But our goal is to try to maximize those dollar amounts. And again, having good planning is going to provide us the maximum amount of dollars from the beginning. Right now, where we stand with our estimated count of where we lay with the amount of lead services we have in our community, we are going to be about a 6% annual, or up to 17 years to replace them. But 6%, we're looking at about roughly 2 to 225 service replacements a year to be able to meet that demand. If we can get the $4 million a year, then we're going to be able to, cut that down in half in the amount of time that we have to get this done. Right now, we are looking at, in today's dollars, roughly $10,000 per service, and that's including engineering, restoration, everything, about $10,000. It may even be slightly higher. We have a little bit of a disadvantage because most of our water mains are in the roadways, so the restoration is going to take a little bit more to do. We only have a few areas that are in the parkways, which are a little bit easier to dig. As part of the process as well, there's priorities. The number one is healthcare, daycare, and schools. We're fortunate that we've already done the inventory on those, and it's good to report that none of those locations actually have lead services. Those are all bigger mains that are ductile iron or even copper at this point in time. So that's one good thing that we have going against us. But again, the biggest one is going to be our residential, and it's going to be our highest. One of the things that we have to do as well is prioritize the work that we're going to be doing. Again, if we're going to be doing road construction projects, water main projects in the future, these all have to be coordinated so we can do them all and we're not making a mess everywhere and ripping up roads that we just paved and things like that. So it's going to take a little bit of an undertaking as we start the planning process. Once the planning process is submitted and if we get in line for some funding, then the next would be starting design and construction. So the design, like anything else, we're going to plot it on the maps and we're going to get all the bid documents ready to go out for bid, award contracts. One of the things is if we're using the state revolving loan fund or any of the forgiveness loans, we have to use the diversity requirements, which is pretty standard nowadays with the state or federal funds. We also have to have a open house for the opportunity for public comment. And then we can go into the construction based upon whatever we feel is the most important critical areas first, and so on. Again, with that construction, we're going to try to get buy-in from homeowners. And, we're looking at different things possibly in the budget discussions that may come out of maybe some potential resident cost share or something like that we're talking about. So we'll be able to come to the board with more of that down the road. And just a quick timeline. Again, public replacements, future infrastructure, repairs, homeowners. I mean, again, those all got to start now. That can't wait. Anytime we get into these, we're going to have to take care of them. One of my examples I was going to bring up is that we had a resident at 737 Homestead that contacted us last week that he noticed water coming up from his B-box. So to us, it's a simple service leak. We planned it to go and replace our portion because our inventory stated that the homeowner side was copper. So we were going to replace our portion. By the time we dug at the B-box, our data wasn't correct. And then we had to halt the program, and then we had to work with the homeowner who actually did buy into it and was able to work with us and a contractor where it was going to be a cost savings for him because we were doing the restoration work, we were doing the excavations. Those were things that the contractor didn't have to do, so it kept their costs down. And 2 days later, he had a brand new copper service going into his home, and we were able to check that one off. Again, that's something that we need to really do, and we've been doing this for the last 3 years now anyways, anytime we came into these, as you can probably tell with some of the updates that we provide to the board. But it's been good to get this buy-in from the people as well, because again, at some point in time it's going to happen. We just don't know no matter when. Now with the planning process, I do want to bring that up is that, we're not going to be able to give everybody right away, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But eventually, we need to get our community and be able to follow the rules. And I think it's for a good cause, is that we make sure that we don't have any lead services that are in the ground and that are active. So that's all I have at this point in time. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, something you want to go over, something I missed?
Rick, I just want to make one quick comment. I want to thank you for the tremendous work you put into this wonderful presentation. It's very thorough. It's a huge project, and thankfully you're in charge of it for us. So thank you. Any trustees have any comments?
Mr. President,
Yes.
just a few questions, but I got it down. In the slide presentation, the estimate of $10,000 in cost, that's going to be the village cost from the main tap to the valve box.
Right
Is that
now,
correct?
no, right now that estimate is for a full line replacement. That would be from the house into the main.
Okay, and then I guess with the 220 plus services you want to do a year, how are you, since you run a skeleton staff to begin with, how are you going to be able to have those 220 services done? Is it going to be some in-house, some village contractors? How are you going to tackle that part?
Well, once we get to the main plan, as I discussed about, doing the design work and going out for bid, these are gonna have to be contractor, bid out projects. That's something that we're not gonna be able to tackle within. We're gonna do what we can internally, public works wise, with, I call these one-offs that we get every once in a while on a service leak, or if a homeowner would like to replace theirs because there's some requirements that we have as well. If a homeowner approaches us that says, hey, I want to replace mine, we are now obligated to replace our portion as well at the same time. So again, we're going to try to do that as much as possible. But if this program or this act starts to really take off, we're thinking, personally, I think that we need to potentially have somebody on a retainer that we can, call to do these in the event that we just get overloaded. But if we just continue to have little ones here, or, one every 2 weeks or something like that, I think that we're going to be able to handle those in-house. But when we get to the actual big plan and we bid these projects out, these are all going to be contractor jobs.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I agree with President DeCipio. Nice job on this. You've been talking about this for at least 3 years that it was coming, with Illinois being worst, leading the state with that many 700,000 lead services. I think well past 2044, there'll probably be some portions underground that'll have some lead in it just because there's no service pipe history, or at one point maybe there was a leak or a revision or a hit or something. But I know years later we're still finding mercury rigs, so I can relate to how that's going to be a headache. But I know we're up for it, so I appreciate it. Nice job tonight.
Thank you, Trustee Sheehan.
Thank you, Trustee Sheehan. Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, great presentation. Put it on the list of items to keep you awake at night. Question I have is on the homeowner side of replacement. Is that 100% replacement into the house, or does it connect to the last 3 feet from outside on in, or does it have to go into the house, and that's what the contractor will be doing?
Well, again, we've learned a lot in the last month. A lot of this was unclear. There was a lot of gray area in the code. And I think Mark Lucas can even attest to this too, is that, we're all learning stuff every day as we go on. But the last month has been really critical for us, because what we heard originally is that we were going to be responsible for the services all the way to and up to the meters inside the homes. That was the original thought that we all heard. But then there's been more clarification lately that have been coming down from people higher up that have been digging into it. And basically now it states that we don't have to, we have to encourage our residents to participate. So if we have a water main project that we're doing, we're automatically, we're going to be replacing ours as well. We have to give the homeowners the option to do the service right then and there, whether it's on their dollar, whether we put it in bids, so maybe they get a better price because we're bidding a bigger quantity during that project. But again, we have to give them the option to do it then. And if they still don't want to do it, or they refuse us entry into their home, they're going to have to provide the signed waiver. So the rule is really, the information that we've gathered, and it's been a lot more clear in the last month, doesn't make us be responsible for that service.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Lautner. Before I move on, Mark, did you have anything you'd like to add to that discussion?
No, I think Rick covered it very well. It has been more developed since the law entered. I think on the residential side, if a resident is replacing their line, they have to go to the 18 inches inside of their wall, to the shutoff or to the meter. That's the requirement. So they can't do a partial lead replacement on their side of the line. That's the only additional. Rick is spot on with the residents responsible for their side. The city is responsible for their side of the shutoff. So.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Trustee Zora?
Great presentation. I'm really glad to see that we're trying to make our drinking water safer. I did have a question with that signed waiver, Rick. So if a resident decides not to do the service and signs the waiver, is this potentially an issue when they go to sell the house? Because now it's going to be on record.
Well, that's one of the things that I haven't read the exact law, but I've heard that in the resident, or the housing transactions now, just like you had to, if you known you had lead paint or you have flooding, you now have to disclose if you have a lead service line. So how's that going to be if somebody signs the waiver and they go to sell their house and they have to disclose that they have a lead service line, and then a potential buyer calls and says, well, how come you still have a lead service line? And we say that, well, the homeowner signed a waiver. I guess that would be up to the homeowner and the new buyer to have those discussions.
So I
But
guess
again-
what I'm getting at is does it make sense? Does this help us or hurt us with that to help the resident understand the repercussions of not doing this?
Well, part of our job is going to be to try to educate that homeowner to the best of our ability and to try to do our job with getting that buy-in to have that line replaced. Ultimately, if they still say no, again, that's when we would still be under the law. We still have to provide them a pitcher for up to 6 months. That's the city of Chicago adds a polyphosphate to the water that coats the pipes. Because you're making a fresh cut on that lead, that's going to be the prime time for the most lead exposure or that leaching that happened into the water. So it takes about 6 months of undisturbedness to get that polyphosphate to recoat that wound, I'm going to call it. And that's when they can stop. But that's something that we would have to provide as that filter and that pitcher. So for our benefit, it's going to be the best that if we try to educate as much as possible. And again, in the last 3 years that we've already been doing this project, I think that we've only had 1 or 2 that elected not to do their service line on their own. But again, at that point in time, we didn't have the waiver rule or any of that stuff. So we just had to make that connection. Now it changes on that notification process, what we have to do. So again, I think we're going to get enough people to take that action now as we're doing it, because again, it's only going to be a big cost savings for them if it's done at the same time with us, or whether a contractor's doing it or what. It's just going to be very cost benefit for them.
Right, and stripping the whole Band-Aid off at the same time instead of doing it several times.
Correct.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you.
Worst comes to worst, you know, even for them, all they got to do is go up to the B box and put a new service in, dig up one time at the main, connect, and then they're done. It's not a huge process. Not the big project's going to be done by us because that's the part going to the main. So it's still not going to be as horrible for them in the future.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Trustee Dorr. Trustee Stewart?
Oh, sorry. My comments and concerns were just with the previous trustees' questions.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Stewart. Trustee Seidel?
Thank you, Mr. President. My questions were answered as well. So it was a great presentation, and thank you, Rick, for all the time that you went in, that staff looked into this. So thank you.
Is that a supporting vote in the background, or? I guess so. Trustee Council?
Thank you, Mr. President. Rick, my question is, if we do something about this now in my individual home, where you're saying they would make the cut, is the lead exposure going to be greater when they make that cut versus what I'm already experiencing, and for, like, for how long?
Yeah, again, if your service line is not disturbed, you have a less chance of having high lead content in the water. Once you make that cut, you just created that fresh wound that has no protective coating over it. So that would be your greatest chance of getting lead into your home. But one of the things I do want to mention is that lead needs time. It needs contact time in that water. It needs to be stagnant for quite a bit of time before it actually can get high concentrations in that pipe. So one of the things that we tell people that when they call us and they're concerned about lead and they want some immediate action, the easiest thing you can do is flush your water for about 2 to 3 minutes before you use it for consumption purposes, because now you're getting water that's represented from the water main itself, and the water mains in the ground do not have any lead. So you're gonna, as long as you're getting that fresh water from the main itself, you have a very, very low chance of any lead content, even if you have a fresh room. It's just that water that sits for 6 to 8 hours stagnant, and that's something that you use right away to consume in the morning or to make your coffee. That's at the greater risk. But if you're ever concerned, just flush, and your concern would be a lot less impact.
So is this something that we should consider doing right now before the village starts doing any of this stuff, or is individual homeowners here, is it beneficial more now?
Well, it's definitely beneficial. I mean, you know, the reason why I say it's beneficial, I mean, ultimately, if you're trying to sell your house, it's probably going to show an increase in value because of it. But if you haven't had any disturbance on it, it's not critical. But again, if a resident approaches us and says, I want to replace my service line up to the Buffalo box, we now are obligated to replace our portion no matter what. So we have to do it. So again, without getting in full detail of all of the little nuances that we have, if a homeowner approaches us, they're supposed to give us about a 45-day window. And then if they were to replace their portion and connect onto our lead, then we have 30 days to do our portion, which again, our job is going to be, let's do this together as a partnership, because if we're going to be replacing our portion, there's no sense that two companies doing 2 excavations and doing double the work. So if we can get the buy-in and get everybody to do it all at the same time, you're talking about having a new lead service done in 1 day.
Excellent. Thank you for all of your hard work, and you guys definitely take on the lion's share more than anybody would ever anticipate. So thanks for all of your help.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Council. And again, Rick, to reiterate, thank you for all your work again. Trustee Sheehan, any other additional comments?
No, thanks. Just great job, and nice job the last couple snow events we've had, and look forward to keeping our roads safe. Thanks.
Yeah, please tell your men to stay healthy safe during this cold season too.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks.
Trustee Lunder, before I move on to finance, I'm going to move up commercial revitalization because we have Andrea and Donna from Happier Now with us. So rather than keep them waiting any longer, I'd like to ask Trustee Stewart to do his commercial revitalization committee report.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. Commercial revitalization report for today. We have a streetscape improvement plan underway. Last year, the village released a request for proposals to develop a streetscape improvement plan for the village market area. This plan will encompass recommendations for signage, landscaping, lighting, and other enhancements aimed at improving the visual appeal and creating a stronger sense of place. The plan would also include strategies of enhancing safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists, including new sidewalks and traffic calming measures along Grange Road. The village received 6 proposals, and the Commercial Revitalization Committee interviewed 4 consultant firms earlier this month. Consultant selection is expected to take place next month. The committee itself, our next meeting will be February 8th on Tuesday at 6 p.m. at Village Hall. Businesses and members of the public are invited to attend and provide input on how the village can best support new and existing business and enhance the commercial areas of Grange Park. That concludes my report. I also have an item that's up for discussion. As President DeCipio mentioned, we do have the owners of Happier Now on the call, and this is an inducement resolution for this property. General background: the village has been approached by Happier Now LLC regarding the development of 1016 East 31st Street for a new restaurant. Happier Now Cafe and Market will offer casual dining and a selection of prepared meals to go, as well as coffee, tea, and other beverages. The subject property is located on the 31st Street Barnesdale Tax Increment Financing District and Business District. Owners have advised village staff that financial assistance is needed in order to complete the project. The planned improvements include new mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, fire protection, and a new water service line. Staff has consulted the village's special counsel, Kathleen Orr, and confirmed that these are eligible costs under the TIF and Business Development Acts. If the village board is supportive of incentivizing the project using TIF or business development dollars, it will be appropriate for the board to consider the attached inducement resolution. The purpose of this resolution is to acknowledge the village's conceptual approval of the proposed project. It does not commit any incentive to the developer. Approval of the resolution will allow the village to request additional information to determine how much of an incentive will be appropriate and to work with the developer to negotiate terms and conditions of the redevelopment agreement. Approval of this resolution will also allow owners of Level Up to incur costs, which may be eligible for reimbursement in the event a redevelopment agreement is negotiated in a future date. Staff recommendation is approval of this inducement resolution for 1016 East 31st Street. Motion to approve a resolution of the Village of LaGrange Park, Cook County, Illinois, to induce the redevelopment of certain property within the tax increment finance and redevelopment area and business district. Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion, Trustee Stewart?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the second, but yeah, so I think that, you know, it's advantageous for the village to support our new as well as existing businesses in any way possible and set them up for success. So I think these funds are available for that exact purpose. So for that, I fully support.
Thank you, Trustee Stewart. Before I move on, Maggie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing to add, except that we have received a preliminary budget from Andrea and Donna, which we did review with Kathy Orr, and there's a number of eligible costs for both TIF and business districts. So if the board is supportive of incentivizing the project, we'll be looking more deeply into which costs potentially to incentivize in the corresponding district.
Thank you, Maggie. Trustee Sheehan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would approve the inducement resolution at this point. Wish them luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple clarification questions. The categories of improvements that are being requested, the new mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, new water service, are all of those building infrastructure improvements or any of those that are specific to that business? In other words, are they building improvement items, all of those expenses?
Yes, they are improvements to for the most part, for the interior of that space at 1016, with the
Okay.
exception of the water service, water main work, which would extend outside of the property.
Right. And the second clarification, I wasn't real clear on the connection to the owners of Level Up.
Apologies, that's a typo. That this is just Happier Now that we're considering for this inducement resolution.
Okay, so no connection to Level Up.
No.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, I mean, there's no dollars being committed. It's conceptual approval that's being requested, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Then I would certainly support that at this point.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Lautner. Trustee Zora?
Thank you. I understand, just as Trustee Lautner said, that we're just considering direction today on an inducement agreement. But I had a question. Do we have any amount in mind? I know you're still looking at costs, but is there a range that you're thinking potentially?
I think what I can share is what's typical, what we typically sort of the past practice, which we would apply here to be consistent, which would be around 20% of eligible costs potentially. And Julia, feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything.
You are absolutely right, Maggie. From here, we work with the requestor on the itemized elements of the improvements. We work with our with our TIF attorney, special counsel Kathy Orr, just to make sure that each one of the elements are eligible. We total the eligible costs and we generally provide an incentive of about 20-21%.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, trustee Zora. Trustee Sidell?
Thank you, Mr. President. We are all for new businesses, and this is what TIF funds are for, so I'm in support of this.
Thank you, trustee Sidell. Trustee Council?
Thank you, Mr. President. As one of the trustees, I can't remember who said about the water service, that would be applicable to any future business in the event that this current business would move out. But would any of the other TIF monies that could be obligated towards this project, could they also be used by another business, or is this particular to this business only?
We can only provide a TIF incentive for fixtures, so things that the business owner can't walk away with if they ever left the location. So that's, I think, a helpful way to think about it. You know, cosmetic things or smaller items within their business that they could, you know, put in a box and take on out, those would not be eligible costs under the TIF Act. Does that help, Trustee Council?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you for your help. So yes, Mr. President, I'm in support.
Thank you, trustee Council. And I too, I'm sorry, I just want to thank Andrea Donna again for placing your business in our community and making it home. And we look forward to working with you down the road. So Maggie, call the roll.
Mr. President,
Maggie, Megan, I'm sorry. Yes.
Mr.
Who's up?
President,
Yes, trustee Sheehan.
point of clarification, who was the second on trustee Stewart's motion? I didn't hear anybody.
That would be me, Trustee Sheehan.
Thank you,
Okay,
trustee
just wanted to make
Sidell.
sure. Okay.
Trustee Sidell, I owe you one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on then. Oh, Megan, call the roll.
Yep. All right, trustee Lautner,
Yes.
trustee Zora,
Yes.
trustee Sidell,
Yes.
trustee Council,
Yes.
trustee Sheehan,
Yes.
trustee Stewart.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. President.
Thank you, Megan. And thank you, trustee Stewart and Maggie, for all your hard work in making this come to fruition. So now we're going to go to Finance Committee. Trustee Lautner.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening's financial report is through the end of December 2021, which is 8 months into the fiscal year of 2022. Fiscal year to date, general fund revenue is at 67.6% of the annual budget, which is about $308,800 or 5.3% greater than the prior year. Property tax receipts are up about $160,000 or 9.5% compared to the prior year. A portion of these receipts would normally have been received in the prior fiscal year. However, the first installment bills were postponed this year by the county. Other local taxes are down about $1,900 or 0.3%. Intergovernmental receipts are higher by about $51,900 or 2.5% compared to last year. Income tax is 23.9% higher than last year, while sales tax is up by 32.9% and use tax is 12.5% lower. The Leveling the Playing Field for Illinois Retail Act required out-of-state retailers and marketplace facilitators to collect and remit state and locally imposed sales tax for the location where the product is delivered starting January of 2021. Combined sales and use tax is up by 12.2% compared to last fiscal year. License revenue is lower by about $6,600 or 2.3%. Permit receipts are up 41.9% or about $94,600 compared to the prior year. Charges for services are higher by about $45,100 or 7.8%, and that's mainly due to increased ambulance fee receipts. Fines are down about $29,100 or 22.8%, and the total general fund expenditures, excluding the transfer to the capital projects fund, are at 64.1% of the annual budget, and about 322,000 or 5.9% higher than last year. This increase is primarily due to personnel expenditures in the police department as vacancies in the prior year were filled. And most importantly, all departments are within budget expectations. And that concludes the finance report for this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Lautner. We know it's budget time, and we want to thank all the department heads and Julia, staff for putting together in not too near future, we're going to be presented with the budget. So thank you for all your work. Larry, would you have anything to add as our finance director?
Not at this time, no. We're right in the middle of getting everything put together for the budget, so we'll have much more in the next month.
Great, thank you, Larry, and thank you, Trustee Lautner. Moving on, other reports, we already had commercial revitalization, so village clerk, Megan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have one quick item to report on this evening. Now that we're in the new year, this is just a reminder that the gubernatorial primary has been moved from March 17th to June 28th of 2022, and the gubernatorial election is scheduled for November 8th, 2022. So a few important dates to keep in mind because of that. Tuesday, May 31st will be the last day for in-person voter registration. And then Tuesday, June 12th will be the last day for voters to register themselves online. And residents are encouraged to visit the Cook County Clerk's Office website for additional information. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Village treasurer, Larry, any additional comments?
Not tonight, Mr. President. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Our village engineer, Mark.
Yes, I have a quick update on the central area sewer separation project. As you know, this is addressing the area that we've seen flooding between the Grange Road and the railroad tracks south of 31st Street. So far, we've completed all the initial plans. We've gathered the information from all the utilities, NICOR, ComEd. We've done some modeling of the system now with the LiDAR information we were able to obtain. So we see the scope, the scale of flooding as the existing condition. It pretty much mimics what we've known long, but we've had the model now representing that fairly well. We now have actually gone through and done the sizing on the proposed sewer. And that's the gravity portion, which would be the area south of Jackson. And we're working on siting the pump station itself. Rick and I had met a week and a half ago and talked about the location. It probably will be along the east side of Barnesdale by Jackson on the Public Works landscaped area on the east side there. We've also talked about the redundancy in the pumps that Rick would like to see on the system, and also an emergency backup power supply. I think we're looking at a natural gas generator for there. All of that would be located on that site. There would be a small structure because we're planning on using variable frequency drives, which allows us to have these pumps operate a little more efficiently for variable size storms that we may have. We're on track right now to have a majority of this work done by March. Mid-March, we'll have a shelf-ready set of plans. So, you know, that was the objective. The objective was to have the shelf-ready plans ready for the next call for the MWRD stormwater call, in which they look for stormwater partnership program rather, where they look to partner with communities. Having shelf-ready plans gives you a stronger application. I think we are in pretty good position to make that application when that call comes out. Typically, it's anticipated at the beginning of January. They have not issued that call as of date. They're anticipating sometime in February, maybe into March before that call comes out.
Great, thank you, Mark. And Mark, thank you for being with us tonight, and please give Mark our best and hope that he gets a speedy recovery.
I will. He'll be back starting tomorrow, actually. So he got good news from home, but he'll be back.
Great. So, thank you, Mark, for your report. Our village attorney, Kathy.
I have no report tonight.
Motion to approve committee and collectors reports as reported.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Did I hear a second?
second,
Somebody, there we go. Megan, call the roll.
Trustee Lautner,
Yes.
trustee Zora,
Yes.
trustee Seidel,
Yes.
trustee Council,
yes.
trustee Sheehan,
Yes.
trustee Stewart.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. President.
Thank you, Megan. I just have two items. One is, I just want to make sure that Rick relays to his staff to be careful out there. Weather's supposed to get treacherous tomorrow. And thank him for protecting us. Last meeting, I did attend the CRC meeting, the first meeting that they had when they interviewed. And I did make comment last meeting about the yeoman's job that Trustee Stewart has done. And I didn't mean to minimize Maggie's job or Trustee Sheehan and Trustee Zora's. All of them, the three of them have done, four of them have done a wonderful job on that committee, and I look forward to your report and your selection. So thank you again, Trustee Stewart, Trustee Sheehan, and Trustee Zora and Maggie for all the work that you did. I think the rest of the board is going to be pleasantly surprised when they hear the results. So thank you. Any public participation of non-agenda related items? Any new business? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second, Megan, call the roll.
Trustee Lautner,
Yes.
trustee Zora,
Yes.
trustee Seidel,
Yes.
trustee Council,
Yes.
trustee Sheehan.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. President.
Thank you, Megan. You and Maggie, I'm gonna have to do something with your names. I'm not sure yet what I'm gonna do. But everybody stay healthy and have a warm day tomorrow. Everybody stay healthy and safe. And thank you for all that you do for our community. Good night.